We're starting off a new unit today, and we're coming off hot off of Donald Trump's most recent press conference, and there were many interesting things that arose from that press conference. And one thing that I personally noticed was the term fake news was directly said 18 times in the press conference. So in an hour, the direct words fake news were said 18 times. There were also several references to news articles and everything, making false claims and everything. So there was, really, they talked about truth and presenting facts many times. And so it's interesting that we're in this time where we're discerning, like, what is fake news? How can I find reliable sources to get information? Donald Trump had an interesting quote when he said, a reporter asked him about, he said, well, was the leaks that came out, were they true? Donald Trump said, yes, they were true, but then you made them fake news. So, and then the reporter asked, like, how could it be true and also be fake news? It's very interesting. And so we're going to be kind of diving into this and looking at different topics such as, an unreliable narrator, and like how can we always trust the people we're receiving information from. So we're going to start off with a writing prompt like we normally do. So if you guys can pull out your journals or a random sheet of paper if you don't have your journals today. We're going to respond to that first writing prompt at the top. When was the last time you read an article or saw a news report that made you doubt its veracity? How did you respond to this doubt? But in order for us to respond well to this writing prompt, veracity is a word we don't use all the time. Does anyone know the definition of veracity? Yeah? Dominic, want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Like how trustworthy or truthful it is.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it. Veracity, it's a little bit different than truth. It doesn't necessarily mean something is true, but it means it's in accordance with the facts, which is it sounds like truth, but it's like if something is all across the board, like people think like this is fact, and you're like saying something that aligns with that, then you don't need to doubt that argument's veracity. But that still doesn't mean that the original facts that were out there were true. So it's a little confusing. But what we're getting at, though, is that about a time where you saw an article and you were thinking, I don't know if this lines up with the facts. I don't think this is what most of the people are saying. So if you can think of a time, we're going to spend 5 minutes writing on this. But really, in this lesson, we're only going to spend one time writing on this. And then when you're done, please turn and share with your partner that you're sitting next to. Okay. So just spend 1 minute on this, real quick. There's lots of stuff out there, but you have something you can jot down.
Something maybe on Facebook feed.
Mm-hmm. Snapchat, that has news now.
Okay.
You guys notice that?
A lot.
Kind of disturbing. As you finish up writing down your ideas, please share it with the person next to you. Who knows, maybe it was about the same article.
Some old things on my Facebook newsfeed, there was Mark Zuckerberg was buying land that was like native Hawaiian, and there was a huge outrage on it, and I was just kind of like, based on his history, like what I know about his history, it didn't seem like he was the type of person to just buy out the land. So that was
which
But,
seems
yeah.
to me like it probably wasn't true.
I wrote about
So,
as
and
far
I
as falling
trust
into
news sources.
sinkholes
So I
University
fact-checked by
City, like over in LA.
trust.
Yeah, because they've had like floods and like really bad weather lately, so they had like a big black hole, and I was like, well, where
reaffirm
did they get this from?
That's
So
what
I
we
was just
do.
like, oh, I don't know if that's true, but in accordance with the weather, I was like, I guess maybe that's a possibility. And then the source, I was also curious if that was like a credible like source.
That's true too.
But then I saw somewhere else that someone was like, oh, thinking about going to Universal, but not sure if I want my car to fall in a hole.
So it's true.
Yeah. So I think
What conference?
that's really scary. And then I read something about like a fire truck falling. I think so.
Just like a like it just fell in or like as
Yeah. No, like the hole was there and then it
Not
just
me,
went
I
from the opposite side and then slowly just
Yeah, it was like a report.
yeah, super scary.
There was something that happened like 2 blocks from my house a week ago. There was 2 people fighting and the cops shot one of the girls. She was 17. But then I saw all these articles, some supporting the cops, some supporting why did they shoot her. But there's no investigation that has gone on yet. And the girl had a knife, but there's all these things like what to believe.
Yeah.
And it was funny to me that people were taking sides already.
Without knowing what
Without
they're
knowing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for sharing. It seems like we all found some interesting articles in the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of stuff that's, flying around the web. So our learning target today is focused around finding reliable sources. And can I ask a student volunteer to read the learning target for today? Yes, please.
I will learn how to identify and analyze false statements in an informational text by evaluating reliable sources.
Thank you so much. Can I have a different student kind of rephrase that in their own words? It can be real simple. Dominic, can you give it a shot?
Yeah, so we're going to read non-fictional things that tell us information, and we're going to then identify things that aren't true in them, and we're going to do that by, this is great, and we're going to do that by looking at the sources themselves.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to open up for a little bit of discussion here around a couple of these questions. So I heard as I was listening around the room that some people were saying that, sometimes the story or the article that they were looking at didn't come from a site or a source that they deemed reliable. How do you make that decision? How do you know that a source is reliable? Is there any ideas?
I think part of it's does the person who's creating the information have a bent or have an agenda when they're disseminating the information? So are there news sites where they have an obvious political bent, so they might be interpreting things a different way, or versus news sites that don't have they don't have a board that cares one way or the other?
It's a great thought. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to figure out what that bent is, because I would argue that everyone has a bent, and so that's where the critical reading comes in. You gotta figure out based on maybe several things that they've written about, you gotta really carefully analyze it. Does anyone else have any suggestions? Maybe there's a news source that you trust more than others, and curious why you place your trust in them.
Don't trust the Onion for all your news.
Yes, the Onion. Mm-hmm.
Satire.
Why not? So let's ask the obvious. Why not?
Satire. It's all fake.
It's all fake. Exactly, and it's intentionally fake. But recently, I saw a high school friend comment on an Onion post as if it was 100% true, and that made me a little sad because it's not true. And so I think that's why this unit is going to be important for everyone here, because I don't want any of you making that same mistake. Any last thoughts on what makes a source reliable? Or unreliable?
I would say they give resources, or not resources, they cite where they find it.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really important if you're looking at an article or something, if they're not willing, one, to identify themselves as the author and put their name behind it, and then two, cite where they're getting their information, and making sure that that's a credible source, some kind of, educational institution or, national statistics organization, something like that, making sure that their source really is backed up. So we kind of talked about the second question as well, like what elements to look for when you are determining whether or not a source is credible. Anyone else have? We kind of touched on several of those. Last thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I think people are going to have different views on what makes a source reliable.
Mhm.
There's no right or wrong answer because we like to reaffirm what we already believe.
Exactly.
So sometimes we'll find a source reliable because it tells us what we already think, and somebody else won't find that source reliable because
Yeah.
it will tell them something different.
Yeah. Or we might find a source reliable because that's the source that we've always known.
Right.
Like you mentioned, in your thing, you mentioned BBC and NPR, and like maybe those are things that, or sources that you were drawn to several times throughout your life, and so now when they post something, you're more inclined to believe them rather than a news agency you haven't heard before. So those were our own personal biases really play into whether or not we find a source to be credible. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get together in our table groups of 4. And so you guys are a table group today, and you guys are a table group. And we're going to search the web. And we're going to find 2 articles per group. One that it seems to be reliable and credible, and one that is not. And then we're going to talk about the decisions you make about like why those articles are like that. So you can use their smartphones, you can pull them out if you have them with you. If you don't have them, I have the school iPads here so that we can all access the internet. So yeah, we're going to work together in groups. I'm going to be floating around and asking you some questions about that as we go.